Hello, everyone. My name is Molly Murphy, and thank you for joining me today to talk more about how early choices matter for families raising children with disabilities. We'd like to respond to some parents' questions about the practical ways and everyday routines that we can be providing practice with choice making. And this project has been supported by the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities and Family Voices of Wisconsin. We really wanted to have more discussion with families around how to practice choice-making skills throughout everyday activities, why it's important to be providing experiences that support early and active participation, and how we can support families, and then families can be supporting their children to really be practicing skills that support independence, no matter what version of independence that might mean for any individual. And that's really choice making is just a skill. It's really building a skill early on and practicing that skill to lead to further participation and self-determination and decision making as individuals with disabilities grow older. And as you think about independence, how that might look different depending on how people communicate, what level of supports that they need, that they still have an opportunity to participate in decision making, really from early childhood through adulthood. We had some questions from parents, and I'll go through those questions and then we'll talk a little bit more specifically around some examples that might help with just creating opportunities within those daily activities. So the first question was, I don't have time in my day, and this resonates with me. I have parented 2 children to work with my child on choice making. What can I do? And the message that we really want there to be for families is that there really is no special time needed for this. There's not an expectation that you'll be carving out time, specific time after dinner, really trying to avoid adding to the stress of one more thing to do in your busy day. So really no special time needed. We think of it more as kind of salt and peppering opportunities across your day, thinking about the activities that you'll be doing already with your child, and then thinking about, is there an opportunity here for me to embed a choice? Every time you communicate with your child, there really is an opportunity to practice, and that can be as simple as when you're putting your shoes on, figuring out which shoe is going to go first, if you're going to stand up, if you're going to sit down while that happens, and that practice with those little small decisions over the day really does start to build that muscle around choice making, so that as our kids get older, they really are in a better position to be able to communicate what their choices might be. Keeping in mind, too, that across an average day, behavior is communication. Choice making isn't limited to someone who can speak their choices, but we often find it really helpful to look at behavior. What is the child doing? Are there nonverbal ways that they might be indicating what their preferences or their choices might be? And I think a really important part of this effort is understanding how important motivation is. So as we're living our lives, the ability to make choices often reveals what some of our preferences are, what do we like, what do we dislike, and really having that motivation to participate, to be able to have a voice in whatever form that takes. Really thinking about, okay, what might this look like during daily routines? I think family meals are a wonderful time during the day with especially young children, maybe teens too. Meals happen frequently, so that there's lots of opportunity embedded within meals, from deciding what you're going to eat and being involved in the preparation. I'm a big believer in chores for children from a very young age, and that level of participation really builds skill in really being able to contribute. And I think that's a really important skill to be practicing as you get older, because then the child starts to build this expectation that they will be a part of what is happening. Lots of choices embedded in getting dressed and in self-care, everywhere from where are we going to do this, when will we do this, and how will we do this. Another question that we had from a parent was, I offered my child many choices and they chose something I couldn't live with. What did I do wrong? Again, in parenting, There's so many stories around, I intended it to go this way, but it didn't actually go the way that I expected it to. We kind of get up, dust ourselves off, and we kind of move on to whatever that next activity will be. It's really okay to make mistakes, and it's really okay to offer choices to your child that are already within a group of choices that you feel comfortable with. We don't want families to think that all of a sudden now there's an equal relationship between parent and child. Child gets to make the same choices you do. That's not the point of this. The point instead is to say, within this group of choices that I've already thought about as a parent, where there's some places that my child could have some input and choice about how this might go. Really thinking about those before you actually offer the choice. I really like to keep it to about 2 choices. And even throughout your lifetime, having the opportunity to make the choice between 2 possibilities is really good practice. And I think in offering choices, it's really important to make sure that we're checking in with kids. Can we read behavior? Are they letting us know in some way? Do they really understand the choices that are being offered? One way to think about limiting choices is that there are going to be some choices that you want to provide an opportunity to make that are a smaller risk. I think of those as frequent choices. You really get to make those choices frequently across the day. And then there's high risk or more occasional choices, and those are choices that we make fewer times in our life because the consequence of the outcome of that might be different. Sometimes by starting with small risk and giving kids a little bit more autonomy and independence doesn't mean that when it comes to higher risk decision making or choice making that we have to let go completely, but you can look at small steps and supported decision making and choice making around situations where the risk might be a little bit higher. What are some ways to really grow your child's choice-making skills? My child always chooses the same things. What can I do to help them learn to make another choice? Um, you know, Familiarity, predictability, sameness, routines, I think for many of us, just part of human nature is we find a lot of comfort in that. So during those times where there's an expectation that we do need to stretch in any way for something new that we're learning, it's really important to think about how can I do this slowly? How can I pair some familiar choices with maybe just a little bit of something new? Yes, you can wear the really soft shirts that you have, but today, the red one's in the wash, we're going to wear the green one today. So you still get to wear the shirt, it still feels comfortable to you, but we're just helping our kids stretch just that little bit to be able to give them that opportunity, but also not create discomfort. We don't want to create situations where we're introducing a new skill that's just contributing to stress, either for parents or for the child. And I think this is really about practicing flexibility. An example of that is a child may get really good at asking for something or choosing between 2 things that they want, and they're communicating that to you clearly. One way to kind of grow that skill is just to take a breath. Before you actually give that cookie or give them that game or give them that chance to go play outside in the yard, can you build in, I'm breathing now, a single breath, a little bit of a pause, so that the muscle that's getting built is this idea of I can get what I want, I can communicate what I want, I can make really clear choices, and at the same time, I'm going to be okay if I have to wait just a little bit. Sometimes we see that kids are really responsive to just changing some aspect of the choice. You get to have something that means a lot to you, but at the same time, maybe for this opportunity, it's just going to be changed in a little bit of a different way. The other ways that we can help kids start to stretch and expand that choice-making ability if they're being a little bit too narrow is thinking about ways that you can provide additional materials. Can you write out those choices? Can you use photos of what those choices might be? Sometimes checklists can be really useful. Oh, I already made that choice today. I need to move on to my list to choose something different. And then sometimes making it really clear, whether that's through use of visuals, whether that's with language, through the presentation of the items that they can choose. These are some things that are yes for a choice, and it's okay to reserve things that are no. This is not available for a choice. These are just a couple examples of, what is some dimension of the choice that's being made that can be just changed a little bit. Motivation is really important around choice making. I think that the idea of coming to understand what your child likes, what they dislike, what are you noticing about their preferences across the day? Another part of this project that we developed, and the resources will come up at the end of our talk today, is there are some materials that we've developed to help families really look at what those preferences are for their child. Almost becoming a scientist and observer of your child, where you have this chance to say, okay, these are the things I know that he or she is showing me that they really like. So those are really great places to be starting around choice making. The other question that we had from families is, how do they take this goal that they have and this practice that they've been doing within their family and with their child, and make it really a part of their conversations with providers of professional services? And one example of that is for families who are working with CLTS case managers. How do you think about embedding choice making into service planning? How do you think about helping your case manager understand that this is a priority for you? So I think, that starts out at the beginning of the conversation, is that you take some time to take that as an opportunity to really say that you've come to understand that early choice making is going to support self-determination and decision making as my child gets older. We want to give a lot of time to practice this. That's why we're starting so young. You can give some examples of, how do I practice this in daily routines? How do I find ways to embed this in what we're already doing? I think another important contribution that parents can make when they're working with providers is really advocating about what your child can and can't do. Depending on who the provider is, or for example, with a case manager, they may not see your child very often. Maybe this is an annual or a biannual planning meeting. And you are really in the best position to be able to say, this is what communication looks like. These are things that I'm noticing are really important to my child. We also want to consider the possibility of child participation, and of course that's going to be dependent on your child's interest, on their age, on their ability. But I think it's a really powerful message to have children, teens, and young adults present when planning is happening in the context of a meeting with service providers and parents, so that there's visibility about who this person is. Sometimes just showing up is a wonderful way to get a sense of what might be important to this child. Do they have some way to start to express, or can you share stories about what are some of the activities that they've enjoyed lately? Or what are some of the activities that you want them to be able to participate as they're getting older? And keeping in mind, in any parent-provider relationship, there is opportunity to also advocate for more time. So if you're having an annual meeting, you're thinking about how you'll be using resources over the next year, it's okay, exactly like in an IEP meeting, to say, I need to pause. I need a little bit more time to kind of think through some of the things that we've talked about today, and then I will get back to you. And then you just make it clear about how you will communicate that information and when. But it's really okay to slow the process down, because in the long run, it's really about support for families and support for this individual. And it's really important that that you have an opportunity, both from a parent perspective and from the individual's perspective, to have your desires and wishes and choices represented in whatever that plan will be. And that can include, augmentative communication, really in the context of those meetings, being able to say, let me show you some ways that she can really let me know what she's thinking about. This is some ways that she makes choices during meal times. She has free time every evening after dinner, and this is how we set that up, and we help her make those choices. So thank you so much for joining today. We have some additional materials that we've developed that you can find here on the Family Voices website. There is some information on the DHS Wisconsin under the Children's Long-Term Support Program, and DHS also has a guide for CLTS case managers called Deciding Together. And I think by looking at some of these resources, it'll lay out a path for you. None of this needs to start, with a weekend away or this concentrated period of time. It's really just more a matter of how do I build this in to daily life, and knowing that practicing this now will definitely have a positive influence on your child's ability to really show up and really participate and really be a part of that decision making as they grow older. Thank you.